to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Stuart Willis. He is President of Asset Preservation, Wealth and Tax. Stuart, how are you today?
Oh, I'm enjoying myself. Ready to rock here. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I'm always happy when I'm in the studio with you because I know how busy you are, and yet you always make the time to come in and do the shows. Thank you so much.
No, glad to be here.
I love just learning about everything that's going on right now. So let's talk a little bit in depth, if we could, right out of the gate about the markets. Because, wow, a lot of information is out there, Stuart, right? You're turning on the TV, the radio. Is it up? Is it down? Is it in between? Where's the market right now?
Well, here's the thing I would say is that, obviously be careful because, now we're seeing tons of clickbait online where they want to scare you to move out of the markets and buy gold or to make moves that may not make sense for you long term. I would just say that, look, we've had it's been a pretty smooth market, but somewhat tumultuous. I would say that, we had a great January, went down in February, and then kind of back, and then down. And, it ended up, we're still up here for the year. And, it's good. I mean, things are good. And I think it's important to just make sure that you are absolutely in the right portfolio, the right risk level for you, because people tend to be very emotional when they invest. And they're,
Sure.
Everyone knows you're supposed to buy low and sell high, but they just get scared. They react and they act, inappropriately for investors.
Sure, emotion takes place. Let me ask you a question. Do we have inflation under control right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a love-hate relationship with Jerome Powell. He and I, he just texted me. No, he didn't. He doesn't even know who I am.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, he doesn't have a clue who I am. I mean, if he saw some of the past shows, he would absolutely ignore my call for sure. But no, look, I think they've raised interest rates aggressively. I always thought there were better ways to kind of tame the inflation. But look, I'm not in his position, right? I'm the great armchair quarterback. I mean, we've gotten from the 9% range down to 4%, and now we're getting lower. So I think he'll have it under control. But you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? And
Exactly.
I think that oftentimes that's what we see, and that's certainly what we saw in 2022. Thank goodness we've seen some rebound here, and we're back off to the races.
Sure. Well, obviously, Stuart, you mentioned the markets being tumultuous. So I have to ask you, how are your clients and also people for the first time coming in, if you will, how are they feeling about that? What are they asking you with it being so up and down like a roller coaster?
Yeah, you know what I would say is I think we've seen a mind shift here where, people have, left the thought of, hey, we're going to make 10% a year consistently, because I think literally from 2009 to 2022, the market was pretty smooth. I mean, there was COVID in there that was a little bit of a mess for a few months and then just kind of quickly rebounded. But it quickly rebounded because the government dumped tons of money in it, right? Obviously, both parties did it. Donald Trump started the spending party, dumped $2 trillion into PPP, and then Biden, he really likes to party with the money, and he's just been dumping it in there. And so, look, I say Congress, they've been spending like drunken sailors, with all due respect to the drunken sailors, because at least they have limits, right? There's a time where their credit card's going to bounce. But, the U.S. government just tends to keep spending and spending and spending. So that's what created the inflation. And obviously, the chickens are going to come home to roost. We're, in a very efficient tax window right now. But that's why I keep telling the audience that you need to take advantage of where we are tax-wise, because I don't believe that we're going to see a continuation of these lower taxes because of the massive debt the country's in now.
Well, that makes sense. And obviously, speaking about roller coasters, we know that what goes up must come down. So what ideas and strategies do you have in place to help offset if there is a downturn in the market again, Stuart?
Well, I think number one, people are coming to the realization that, that rising tides, float all boats, like Warren Buffett always said, right? Some people are still delusional and believing they're great money managers and traders on their 401k and, want to pretend they're geniuses. But at the end of the day, the smart people realize that, the guy who comes in and says, hey, I tripled my money over the last 12 years. Oh, great. The market quadrupled. You only underperformed by 25%, right? So smart people realize that everybody made money if they did the right things, right? If they didn't do anything, just horrible.
Yeah.
Smart people know when to ask for help. Right.
Sure.
But some people just want to be the cool guy at the water cooler at work to say, hey, look at my QQQ and my Bitcoin. And they want to, be the cool guy out there. And I think it's a big problem. I think it's a huge problem because there's tremendous amounts of dangers in this. But for the people, that are nearing retirement or in retirement, there's a lot of options that people just don't know exist. And one of the ways to prevent a downturn, number one, is to make sure you're in the right portfolio. Because I think sometimes people are aggressive, obviously, when the markets are good because they want all the upside, but they're not comfortable with the downside that comes with that aggressive portfolio when the markets turn.
Sure.
Right? And I think that, some of the options that people need to understand, look, if you're 59 and a half, most people that have 401ks, definitely thrift savings plans, some 457 deferred comps, 403Bs, they allow you to be able to roll out a portion or all of your 401k into an IRA to have it professionally managed. And there are some benefits and some downsides here.
Okay.
So it's not just hey, everyone should roll it into an IRA.
Okay. Some
of the downsides include, what if you take loans against your 401k, right? You could end up defaulting on loans, et cetera. So if you use the loan provisions, it's probably something you need to think about. Also, there's something called ERISA protections. In Arizona, we have a very protective, state regulatory environment that, protects a lot of people in their retirement accounts. But other states, especially like California, et cetera, those sort of retirement accounts are more susceptible to litigation and so forth. And I'm not here to give you legal advice, but there are some, federal protections that protect these underlying investments. So it's something to consider. But the benefits are that A, you can have it professionally managed. B, you can also have tax management done. And what we mean by that is, look, we've been talking all the time about Roth conversion, tax planning, all that sort of stuff. Well, it's hard to do inside your existing 401k, but once you roll it to an IRA, you can then convert it over to Roth. It's a two-step process. So I think it's really important that people know their options, people understand, and people are properly diversified in a properly managed account. And so if you're concerned that you don't know what options you have and you're over 59 and a half and want to see whether professional money management makes sense for you, we're offering a complimentary portfolio review where we'll take a look at whether you're properly diversified. What kind of risk are you taking in there? And does tax planning and Roth conversion make sense for you to take advantage of this very low tax environment we're in for the next 3 years? If you're concerned or you have questions, we'd be glad to give you that review. But you have to take action. Give us a call at 833-602-PLAN. That's 833-602-7526. Or even easier, if you click on the QR code that's at the bottom of your screen, that'll take you to assetpreservation.com. If you take action, we'd be glad to help. We're glad to be your partner, but you have to ask for help.
Stuart, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is 833-602-PLAN. PLAN, 833-602-7526. We know that you have a lot of questions for Stuart about how to plan your perfect retirement. You've worked your entire life to get to the retirement years, and you deserve to have the retirement of your dreams. Don't miss the opportunity to call in today. We're going to take a very short commercial break here on the Asset Preservation Hour with Stuart Willis, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, I want to talk to Stuart more in depth about Social Security and also pensions. Stay tuned.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. I'm Stuart Willis with Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. We are in one of the greatest tax windows in history, so it makes sense to take advantage of this tax discount while you can with your partners in retirement. All of our expert advisors, CPAs, and enrolled agents are fiduciaries that specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and more. Plan your retirement right. Call right now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Stuart Willis. He is President of Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. Stuart, a great show we're having today, talking about such important topics surrounding retirement planning, of course. In this next segment, you mentioned the water cooler in our first segment. This makes me think of this next topic, which is Social Security, because so many people tend to get advice from people that they work with or they live next to, a lot of times at the water cooler. So Social Security, any planning that you can do in this area?
Well, absolutely. And look, I think it's the area where we just see tons of mistakes because people are susceptible to talking to their friends. Yeah. Remember, there's always this smart guy at the office that you should listen to this guy because he knows what he's doing.
Yep.
You know, oftentimes they're just as lost as the rest of them, but they just like the attention of giving advice. And part of the mistakes we see is that oftentimes what we're hearing is, you know, there's tremendous concerns, obviously, that Social Security is you know, having financial issues, and it's true. So what they'll say is, hey, take it as early as possible at 62, because at least you can start collecting something.
Right.
I think it's a mistake. Okay. Right. Now, listen, some basic, you know, premises about Social Security. Most people realize that the earliest you can take it is 62, the latest you can take it is 70. But there is a moving part in there called full retirement age. And that moving part used to be down at 65 years old, and they keep delaying and delaying and delaying it. So now that the latest age is 67 for full retirement age. Now, look, right now they're rioting in Paris right now because they moved the retirement age to 64.
Wow.
They've moved it to 67 in the U.S. and nobody's saying anything. So I guess we just, you know, we're okay with everything, right?
We just go with the flow.
I mean, if they have to retire at 64, they're going to riot in Paris. I mean, it's just nuts, right? So I'm not suggesting you guys riot, please. I'm not, incentivizing that. But look, I mean, the full retirement age is shifting, and where that's relevant is because, look, most people realize that the earlier you take Social Security, the less you get. The later you take it, the more you get. Well, the math behind it works like this. Basically, there's something called an actuarial reduction. So when you take it early, you're essentially getting a reduced amount. When you take it later, you're getting an 8% per year delayed retirement credit. So you get more. But they're compressing the amount of time. As full retirement age gets later and later and later, you're getting penalized more for taking it early and benefiting less by taking it late. So the options that made sense a year, 2 years, 3 years ago may not make sense anymore because a lot of the switching strategies all went away. So just know that there's some things people need to think about.
Stuart, thank you so much. I should also ask you, any changes coming to Social Security? Can we talk about that?
Oh, yeah. So, once again, I talked about the Social Security Trust Fund having some issues. We all realize that, that the Social Security Trust Fund has some financial difficulties here, to say the least, right? Just about a year ago, it was scheduled to be defunct or out of money in 2033. It's since been advanced to 2032. So it's accelerating when it's going to be out of money.
Wow.
And so, look, I used to tell people all the time, Social Security will never be touched because senior citizens are the biggest voting bloc in America, and no one's ever going to touch your benefits because they want to stay in office. But believe it or not, in 2015, we saw a massive gutting of your Social Security benefits. It's a bipartisan budget act of 2015, and nobody said anything, which was crazy. Nobody even knows it happened.
That is crazy. So obviously that's big, huge news. Why didn't we hear more about it?
I think it was aimed or it was marketed by Congress that, hey, it only affects the wealthy because, by these switching strategies that allowed you to take part of your wife's or your husband's and vice versa. Yeah. It was just a marketing spin. It's why you've seen these news clips of local news in 10 different markets saying exactly the same sound bites because they're just sound bites that Congress pushes. But people should be upset. We had a guy at one of our live workshops that, when we explained to him the Budget Act, and this was in 2015, the guy realized, oh my gosh, I'm 2 weeks too young. And he lost it was like $400,000 in benefits over his lifetime that just went away.
Oh,
because he was 2 weeks too young because he was planning on a certain file and suspend strategy. So I think it's really important to make sure you know what's going on, know that, the changes that I'm concerned about are really the fact that, look, Social Security is having financial difficulty. And that's why when I said, when Lindsey Graham and Bernie Sanders agree on something, it's scary. And what they agree on is that higher income folks don't need Social Security as bad. Now, to me, what's that saying to you? Do you have any idea what that means?
What that means is that's probably going to be the party that's going to be affected the most.
Right. So
100%.
remember, when they both agree on something, to me, it's like a dog whistle saying, we're coming at, we're going to tax you more.
100%.
We're going to start increasing taxes. And so if they're saying, hey, the higher income folks don't need Social Security as bad. Remember, that's also what they said in 1983 when they taxed Social Security for the first time ever. It was never intended to be a taxable income source because it's already a tax, right? It's like a double tax. But believe it or not, it was Ronald Reagan that made it taxable for the first time, and then Bill Clinton made it more taxable. So the thought is here that if they're creating a situation where they're going to tax higher income folks, because it's hard to tax, Build Back Better tried to tax assets, but it's too hard to account for it. So it's way easier to tax income. That's why it's important right now when it comes to Social Security to have a plan that includes tax planning, okay? A lot of our clients that we see, they come in as a married couple. We see between $1 million and $2.5 million in benefit over their lifetime. And people spend all this effort coming in, planning their investments, their 401ks, their thrift savings plans. Why the heck aren't they planning their Social Security if it's $1 million or $2 million?
That's true.
Right? And people just overlook it. So it's really, really important to plan it, right? And one way you can plan is having a tax plan to mitigate or minimize, maybe even eliminate the taxes on your Social Security. Everybody's situation is different. If you have big pensions, you're always going to pay tax on that. But you know what? There's options to mitigate it and minimize it in many situations. And, it's really important that you get a second opinion on Social Security.
Well, Stuart, I know there's a very special offer you're going to present to our viewers. Let's talk about what that is before we revisit the phones.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're concerned that, you're nearing retirement, or maybe you're even in retirement and you're already on Social Security and you want to mitigate the taxes on Social Security, or to see if there's ever any options, we'd be glad to let you know. We have tax professionals, financial professionals, all standing by. We'd be glad to help. But you have to take action. Just ask for help. If you give us a call at 833-602-7526, we'd be glad to give you that complimentary portfolio review. We'll look at what kind of fees you're paying. We'll take a look at what kind of risk you're taking and whether we can optimize your Social Security to make it as tax efficient as possible. But once again, you have to take action. Click on that QR code. Or even better, go to assetpreservation.com. We'd be glad to help.
Stuart, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number, 833-602-7526, 833-602-PLAN. We know that you have a lot of questions for Stuart about all of the topics that he's speaking about today, so please don't miss this opportunity to take advantage of that complimentary portfolio review. If you don't have a pen handy, that's okay. Grab your smartphone, click on that QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That will take you right to the Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax landing page. We're going to take a very short commercial break here on the Asset Preservation Hour, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, I want to ask Stuart about what you should be looking for in a financial advisor. Any questions that you should be asking? Stay tuned for his response.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Stuart Willis with Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. We are in one of the greatest tax windows in history, so it makes sense to take advantage of this tax discount while you can with your partners in retirement. All of our expert advisors, CPAs, and enrolled agents are fiduciaries that specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and more. Plan your retirement right. Call right now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Stuart Willis. He is president of Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. An amazing show we're having today, Stuart, talking about all these important things that always circle around proper planning for retirement. But this next segment, I want to ask you, in case someone is in our viewing audience today, and they're wondering if they're with the right financial advisor, perhaps they're interviewing other financial advisors, what types of questions should be asked when someone's being interviewed?
Well, I think there's a few basic things, 4 basic things that you should be looking for in a financial advisor. Number one, you want to make sure they're a fiduciary. And what we mean by fiduciary, I think the word is somewhat stretched in some instances here. But when we talk about a fiduciary, we're talking about an investment advisor representative compared to a broker, for example. So a broker is allowed to receive commissions and fees from transactions. For example, if they have a mutual fund that's a loaded mutual fund, they can get paid for selling that to you by the mutual fund company. Or they can be paid the back end fees, like 12B1 fees and so forth. And you just want to know that the advisor is working for you, not the mutual fund company, right? You just want to know there's no conflicted advice, that they're not steering you from mutual fund A to mutual fund B because mutual fund B, pays them more, right? You want to know that. And we're not allowed to receive any sort of commissions on securities here. So, when we're saying, hey, we like this portfolio versus that portfolio, I think, it's a pretty, people can take it, for what it is, that it's real advice. We believe it'll benefit you, et cetera. Number two, I think maybe most importantly, I think it's important that you like your financial advisor, that you get along, that there's chemistry there, right? Because these are long-term relationships. And I think, very often, people don't like the people they're dealing with, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, we have to go see that guy. And so what do? They avoid the conversations. They avoid the meetings. And communication is everything. It's why I have a very simple rule. I don't do business with people I don't like. And you shouldn't either. That's why I'm comfortable giving all of my clients my personal cell phone number. Yes, it rings off the hook. Yes, when I'm done recording, I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to have 20 text messages. But you know what? I think communication really matters. It's super, super important. And it's much easier when you like that person.
That is true. That is true.
The next thing is you need to be dealing with a holistic planner. And by holistic planner, what I mean is that you need to make sure, of course, they do proper money management. Make sure that they can handle your investments. But very importantly, make sure they have a tax office inside their office. They don't just briefly touch taxes, that they have an in-depth knowledge, that they have CPAs on staff to be able to talk to you about your tax plan. Very important. Also, are they retirement planning experts? Because a lot of people specialize in growing your money, but they don't know how to properly take it out or create an efficient, income stream from a tax perspective as well as an insurance planner and estate planner. They need to understand living trusts. They need to understand all of that together. The next thing I'd say is to make sure that you have, when I talk about chemistry, also availability, okay? And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of firms locally that are now, someone sold you. The big advisor came in, they sold you, and then they move you to the junior advisor because you're not big enough or you're not deserving enough to deal with the big advisor. Or maybe they even moved you to their out-of-state representative that's going to service you on Zoom.
Right.
Doesn't sound like what a lot of people sign up for.
No, that's not personal attention.
Because it's hard. You don't want because these people on Zoom, when you have these Zoom relationships, those things change. What they've done is made this kind of interchangeable relationship. Look, we have incentives in our compensation package for our advisors to never leave. Right? It's a really neat package. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but we've never, since we've created our business model, we've never had an advisor leave from our new model here. And it's nuts because We don't think that they will. We've built in these amazing incentive packages for them never to want to go off on their own, so that they're going to be here forever. Is it going to happen? Who knows? Maybe they leave. Maybe someone gets upset at me for something.
I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think so.
I try to be a good boss, but you never know. People make some goofy decisions. So very important that you deal with someone you like. If they're pushing you off to Zoom, look, it's one thing. If you live in some remote area out in the middle of Globe or something, I'm going to talk to you by Zoom. I'm not driving up there. But with all due respect. See, if I say with all due respect, it makes it all better.
It does.
So I can be insulting and then say no.
Yes, with all due respect, here's what I do. Yeah.
but look, if somebody pushed you off to Zoom with some good person out of state, or you're dealing with someone remotely, it's just not the way to have a financial relationship. I question whether you're going to actually be able to communicate. And are they going to be there for you? Because you want to make sure that when you're picking your financial advisor, you're picking a financial advisor when you have the capacity to do so, right? As you enter your retirement years, if your financial advisor, and I'm going to say this with all due respect, right? If your financial advisor is older than you and they're going to retire before you pass away, don't you want to be in a position to be able to find an advisor that's going to survive the test of time, that's going to be there for you when you're done?
That's true.
Right? Because you want to be reselecting at 90 years old your new financial advisor? I mean, maybe not.
Right.
Everyone's different. I don't know. So I didn't mean for that to sound ageist to anybody, if that's a thing. But you know, I think it's important for someone to be able to know that they're gonna be along the ride with you from here on out.
Well, and I've been working with you now for, what, 4 years, Stuart? So I've heard over and over how people appreciate the personal attention and service that you give each client. Even though you are so incredibly busy, you make them feel like that is your only client.
Yeah, I try. And, you know, people will ask us all the time, what is your minimum, you know, et cetera. And I don't do that. Listen, I treat everybody, you know, with dignity and respect. And, you know, quite honestly, I think our first meetings when we do these complimentary reviews, it's about finding out, are we a good fit for you? Are you a good fit for us? It's a chemistry. It's like a first date.
Of course.
Right? You want to know if this is going to work.
Sure.
And it doesn't hurt to find out, right? Don't get me wrong. One of my advisors may start crying if you don't like them very much, but I will survive it. So if you want to find out if we're a good fit, or you think that your existing relationship is not a good fit, or somebody relegated you to dealing with a Zoom call from out of the state, then give us a call at 833-602-7526. We'd be glad to give you a second opinion. If you give us a shot, we were going to try our hardest to impress you. Or even easier, pick up your phone, click on that QR code, and click on Complimentary Portfolio Review. You have to take action. We'd be glad to help.
Stuart, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, most specifically, we'd like to thank you for spending time with us today on Asset Preservation Hour. We know that you have a lot of questions for Stuart about all of the topics that we've covered today. He would love to hear from you. Please don't miss the opportunity to call in. Be safe, be happy, and be blessed. We'll see you back here 1 week from today. Take care.